welcome to this episode of Go There on Fourth, a podcast about faith, football, and fantasy football. I am your host, Pastor Jason Barnett, a.k.a. The Dirt. I am not a football expert. I'm not a fantasy football expert. I am just a football junkie and a guy bumbling his way through a fantasy football season that wound up in the playoffs somehow. As bad as the team began, here somehow we made it. And along the way, I've been making some weekly game picks with you and sharing the results. So there's a Thursday edition where I make the picks. Today is the Tuesday edition where I recap how everything went. And last Thursday, I had with me by the name of Jeff Horn. He's a member here at the Ravenna Church of the Nazarene, where I serve as the pastor, and he's in the football league with me. And we came on, we made game picks together as we both were battling for our playoff lives. We share with you also how we were setting our lineups. So before I tell you how my fantasy football team did in that first round of the playoffs, before we get to it, let me start off by sharing how Jeff and I fared in our game picks. Coming in on the season, I have 120 game picks right and 86 wrong. I'm pretty sure the majority of the wrong ones are the Indianapolis Colts because I keep picking them even though they keep letting me down. Against guest, I am 2-2, so I'm at 500 against guest. Brandon Knight was the latest guest to beat me. My wife, Nicole, absolutely trounced me earlier in the season. But Jeff, let's see how Jeff Horn stacked up against me in making our game picks. So we're going to look at the Thursday and the early Sunday games. I guess we'll include the Saturday games there too somewhere. So 49ers versus the Seahawks. We both picked the 49ers to win, and the 49ers won. What I know is I saw a graphic during the game that showed the Super Bowl percentage chances for each or several top teams like the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Eagles. And they were high, right? They were a lot higher than the 49ers. But to me, watching the game from the outside looking in, I feel like the 49ers are a Super Bowl team. And but okay, they are on their third string quarterback. He's playing great right now, but how will he play come playoff time? Who knows? So maybe I can give you credit for putting the Bills a little bit higher, maybe the Dolphins a little bit higher, and the Eagles higher. But the one that got me was I don't understand how the Cowboys were higher than the 49ers. I think the 49ers were given an 8% chance by that graphic, and the Cowboys were at a 9%. So it's only 1% chance higher. But come on, it's the Cowboys. The last time the Cowboys won a Super Bowl was actually the first Super Bowl I ever remember watching. Right, that was 95. Maybe it was the 96 Super Bowl. I don't even remember. That's how bad it was. That's how long ago it was. I didn't even know what football really was at that point. I was watching. That's how long ago it was that the Cowboys won a Super Bowl. And they struggled against Houston, although Houston put up a good game against Kansas City this last week. But the Cowboys have been struggling. So I don't understand. Both picked the 49ers, and then we both got it correct. Colts versus the Vikings. Jeff and I both picked the Colts. I picked the Colts out of obligation as a fan. Jeff picked the Colts because he thought the Colts could win. And for the first half of this game, Jeff looked like a genius, and I looked like my fandom was finally going to be right. We were up 33-0 on the Vikings. We were absolutely crushing them. And we had to play the second half. I mean, you're up 33-0 at halftime, and you somehow lose the game. And the only thing I can think to tell you about this is you from winning the game. Don't play prevent defense. Just keep your foot on the throat, keep your foot on the gas, go full throttle. Don't just start playing prevent defense to try and keep from losing the game. Whenever you play not to lose, you typically lose. So that's what happened. The Colts gave up the largest comeback in NFL history. Thanks in large, who outdid himself from the Super Bowl performance when he was with the Falcons. So, all right, Ravens versus the Browns. This is where the first game where Jeff and I split, go different directions. He picked the Ravens, I picked the Browns, and the Browns got the win. Deshaun Watson gets his first win as a Cleveland Brown. Dolphins versus the Bills. The Bills won, and all I can say is snowball. I can't remember who the commentator was for the NFL Network for the Bills game, but he was cracking me up because he reminded me of Flint Lockwood from the movie and Meatballs. Hey, don't make fun of me. I have kids. They love that movie. But he starts throwing ice cream snowballs at the kids, and he just yells snowball every time. And I felt like that's kind of what that commentary did. He was just making sure he got the word snowball in there. But we both picked the Bills. Bills win. Falcons versus Saints. Jeff and I both picked the Saints to win, and the Saints got the W there. Eagles versus the Bears. We both picked the Eagles, and the Eagles got the win there. I know, not very exciting. Well, Jalen got hurt. And what's that mean for the Eagles going forward? They've only lost one. Are they going to be able to keep that momentum going with Minshew coming in at quarterback? Who knows? We'll see. Only time will tell. First, the Jets. Jeff and I both picked the Lions, and the Lions won in dramatic fashion. Goff threw a touchdown pass to Brock Wright with 1 minute and 49 seconds left in the game, and to get them the win. All right, here we go. Jeff and I picking the same two teams and both getting it correct. This pick's for you. Is the Steelers versus the Panthers, and again, Jeff and I go separate directions. He picked I picked the Steelers. I'm sorry, I got backwards. I picked the Panthers, and well, that's what I get for believing in the Panthers, right? I believed in a team that fired their head coach, that just dropped Baker Mayfield, traded their talented receiver. It's a team definitely going into rebuilding mode, and I picked them to beat the Steelers, and obviously that didn't work out. So Jeff got it right. I didn't. Cowboys versus the Jaguars. Jeff and I both picked the Cowboys in this one. But here's the thing. Cowboys to win. I knew as soon as it went to overtime, not because it was going to overtime, and not because the Cowboys are the Cowboys, although the Cowboys part doesn't surprise me. But they showed a snippet of Dak Prescott on the sideline. You watch him, walking back and forth and shouting at his teammates, "I want the ball, get me the ball." Dak was shouting that. It gave me flashbacks to when Matt Hasselbeck was the quarterback for the Seahawks, and they're playing the Packers house, and they win the coin toss, and he says, "We want the ball, and we're going to score." And then Matt Hasselbeck threw a touchdown pass to the Packers, and they lost the game. That's what Dak Prescott reminded me of in that moment. He was saying, "Yeah, I want the ball." And I just somehow knew him saying that was going to come back and haunt him. And sure enough, time the defense gets stopped, they get the ball back, and what does Dak Prescott do? He throws a touchdown pass to the Jaguars to end the game. So, but Jeff, let's face it, who else got this? Who got this pick right? Who picked the Jaguars to beat the Cowboys? If you did, you're probably a Jaguars fan. Chiefs versus the Texans. We both picked the Chiefs, and the monster game. If you had him on running back in your fantasy team and you actually went with him, congratulations for that gamble. It actually paid off, because this year, if you're going with any of the Chiefs running backs, you really are taking a risk, because you don't know the three is actually going to get the ball. But this time McKinnon came through. So for the early games, I was 7-3. Jeff was 7-3. So we were tied coming out of the early matchups. So that's pretty good. So he has a good chance of being the third guest to defeat me on the season in the game picks. All right, so let's go. I'm changing the order up a little bit today. We're going to talk about how my fantasy football team did at this point. I'm in a 12-team PPR league with custom scoring for church folks and friends. We have partial points for targets, partial points for completions, and things like that, right? So that's what I mean. On top of PPR, there's some custom scoring things in there. After starting 1-6, my teams don't be a suck up. Somehow made the playoffs. We started off 1-6. We won enough to get into the playoffs, and so I had to play the number 2 seed in our playoff. You're saying, Jason, why are you playing the 2 seed? Because out of our 12 teams, 7 teams make the playoffs. The number 1 team got a bye. So what's cool though is in my division, and 3 of our 4 teams made the playoffs. So that's kind of exciting. So that should make me feel a little bit better about how poorly my team did in the regular season. But anyway, I was number 7 seed going in against number 2. If you remember right, I actually beat this team a couple weeks ago, but I was greatly benefited by Lamar Jackson exiting in the first quarter. I knew that I was not going to get that. Like, again, I'm glad I don't get that. Again, I don't cheer for players to get injured. I don't hope for players. That's not why I play fantasy football. I actually, when I play fantasy football, I still value the real game over the fantasy version. Anyway, so I started with you how I was going. My struggles when setting my lineup last week, and at quarterback I have Geno Smith. Remember, I was concerned because he's going against that 49ers defense, and their defense was tough. I had Mike White on the bench, but I wasn't sure if he was going to play or not because he was listed as question mark. And in fact, he didn't play. What's crazy about Mike White, though, from what I've heard, he went to 10 different – find one doctor that would clear him and allow him to play in that game. Talk about a man that loves the game of football, that loves his team, wants to go out there and compete. But unfortunately, Mike White could not find one doctor to sign off to let him play on Sunday's matchup. So I didn't play Mike White, though. Anyway. Then I went to free agency. I did find Deshaun Watson. I'm not a big Deshaun Watson fan, but I had to have an emergency plan Thursday. I thought, well, let's get an emergency here. He was going against the Ravens, but I'm glad I did. I'm glad I didn't play Watson. I stuck it out with Geno, even though he's playing against the number one defense. He put up 230 yards and a touchdown in our league. So good decision to go with Geno, even though it was a bit of a gamble to go with him on a Thursday night at the beginning of the week. I gambled a little bit, and it worked out. Running back one, I had Austin Eckler, and I was concerned about him because he was going against the rightfully so. He had 70 scrimmage yards and only 2 catches, 27.3 points, which is okay, but that's not nearly what he was giving me output-wise. That kind of got me in the playoffs. Now, Jamal Williams, running back for the Lions. He's my running back for the Jets, and I was concerned there too. 1, because he's been splitting carries. 2, he didn't have a touchdown last week. And 3, because the Jets defense is really good against opposing running backs. And again, 13 carries, 33 yards, no touchdown for Jamal Williams. It's the first game. I think it's the first stretch this season where Williams had back-to-back games with no touchdown. And he only scored 16.3 points for me in this one. Again, we get some partial points for carries too. Receiver, I was concerned. I had a lot of concern for my lineup in this. Maybe it's because the playoffs is ratcheted up a notch, but I was concerned for Tyreek Hill because he's going against the Bills. About the same time, it was Tyreek Hill. While I was a little bit concerned while he was playing, he was questionable. I was concerned about that. He ended up having 9 catches on 13 targets, 69 yards and a touchdown, 23.2 points, which is pretty decent for a receiver in our league. So that kind of worked out. Receiver, he had 8 catches on 9 targets for 86 yards, and that got me 17 points. The one that killed me, though, this is the spot, the tight end spot, Dalton Schultz of the Cowboys. He's going against the Jaguars. 2 catches for 15 yards. That's not going to cut it at this point in the season for playoff football, fantasy football. Only 3.9 points for me. Thankfully, he got some more, maybe a few more targets in there, but I think he had 4 targets in total in the game. I didn't watch this game, so I don't know if the reason he didn't catch him is that like they just threw it his direction or what. But anyway, at flex, though, I had James Conner. This was another concern game because he was playing. The Cardinals were playing the Broncos. Swallows up opposing offenses. They create all kinds of problems, and they cause all kinds of destruction. But I stuck it out with James Conner mainly because of his volume. He gets tons of touches in the running game and the passing game, so it was of a gamble to roll with James Conner in the flex for this week. He ended up with 91 scrimmage yards and a touchdown for 34.6 points in our league. Again, that's pretty decent. That's okay for a running back our league. Another poor play by me. At defense, I went with the Panthers versus the Steelers, and mainly because the Panthers defense has been averaging 15 fantasy points a week. Against the Steelers, they did not get that. They only have 1 sack on the game. Maybe it's because it was Trubisky instead of Pickett. I don't know. Again, another game I didn't really watch a whole very closely, mainly because I didn't really want to watch the Panthers and the Steelers. But anyway, only 9 points for my defense, so that was tough. Brett Maher, the kicker for the Cowboys, I went with him. He scored me 12 points. Again, anytime your kicker scores you double digits, you are a happy camper. So I scored 200, which was, I scored over 200. In our league, if you want to be a top team, you've got to score over 200. I did leave 5 extra points on the bench because Michael Pittman Jr., who plays for the Colts, 5 more points than I think I can't remember which receiver it was. One of my Keenan Allen. He outscored Keenan Allen in this game. I probably could have played him as a flex and moved. Who knows? But it didn't work out. So I left 5 points on the bench. But that was 5 points. Wouldn't have mattered anyway. Because I lost to the number 2 seeded team in the playoffs. They scored 266.4 points. The quarterback who went off. They had Derrick Henry. They had Travis Kelce. They had Stevenson from the Patriots. They had Devontae Adams and DeAndre Hopkins, right? So, yes, I lost that game. So what that means is this is the final episode of season 1 of we have wrapped up. This is the closing episode of season 1. As sad as that is, but don't worry. I have some good news to share with you, even though that this is the final episode of the season. Yeah. So that's how my team. Battle for your fantasy football playoff lives. Still, man, drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know. I'd love to hear how your team is doing. If you have any questions. All right. Some late in primetime games, recapping how Jeff and I did. I'm kind of combining the late games and the primetime games today. Jeff and I were tied at 7-3 apiece. Both of us got 7 correct, 3 of us, and then each of us had 3 wrong coming out of the early games. So in the Cardinals versus the Broncos, Jeff and I both picked the Broncos, and the Broncos won. I know it was a risk, right? Picking the Broncos to beat anybody this year is kind of you're taking some drastic steps, but interceptions, 3 sacks. That's a pretty good outing. They were playing Colt McCoy. I just thought that was going to be a problem game for Colt. We both got that one right. Patriots versus the Raiders. Jeff and I split on. Thought the Raiders were going to win. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the Patriots were going to win, and Jeff picked the Raiders. As we all know, Jeff was correct. Now, I mentioned earlier how bad my Colts got beat, right? They were up 3-3. Lost. So I was feeling pretty blue Saturday night and part of Sunday when it comes to football. I was pretty down about the way that happened. And then I watched how this Raiders and Patriots game ended. And I want you to know it was wounded heart to see the Patriots lose in this fashion. To see this unwise pitch by Stevenson to start with. I'm not even sure why Stevenson pitching it to a guy who was going to gain another 5 yards from me. He just pitched it anyway. And then Jacoby Myers further complicated a very terrible situation by trying to toss it to Mac Jones, but instead he got it to Chandler Jones. And what Mac Jones got was a Chandler Jones stiff arm to his face. So as a Colts fan, this was good medicine. That made my heart feel better to see how the Patriots lost. So thank you, Patriots. Thank you for helping me get through a tough time. But anyway, I picked the Patriots to win. They did not win. So Jeff got me now. Titans versus the Chargers. We both picked the Chargers to win, and the Chargers won thanks to some late heroics by Justin Herbert and Mike Williams. Man, that Chargers offense, though, man, they're scary with Mac Williams. Allen, I think he still had like 8 catches still on 9 targets. And Eckler didn't perform as well, but the Titans are a tough defense. But I think the offense is scary and something that'll be giving people fits. And possibly into the playoffs. But we both picked the Chargers win. Bengals versus the Buccaneers. We both picked the Bengals, and the Bengals won. But it was not without its dramatics. Brady had to lose a 17-point lead, I think, for the first time in his career to the Bengals, for the Bengals to win this one, and it happened. It was amazing. The Commanders. Jeff and I split on this one again. I picked the Commanders, and Jeff picked the Giants. All I know is at the end of this game, there was talk about Heineke being benched in favor of Carson Wentz. So that should give you an indicator of how the game went. The Giants won this one. I thought this one may go to a second overtime, and that would be crazy. 20 apiece, but that's not what happened. Giants were able to win this one. Jeff got it right. I didn't. Rams versus again, Jeff and I split on this one. I believe the Rams were going to win. I thought Baker Mayfield coming out and balling out, after 48 hours of being on the team, not knowing his teammate's name, not knowing the playbook, and not knowing where to go in the stadium. I thought, they're going to ride that magic for another week. But then they went to Lambeau Field and played in the very, very – and it did not work out. So Jeff got this one right. He picked the Packers. I picked the Rams. So Jeff got me on this one. But my favorite thing about this game is Christian Watson has had a streak going. I can't remember if it was 5 games. He's had a touchdown pass, which is an incredible run for a rookie. And Rodgers knew this. Rodgers knew that Watson had this streak going, and he was trying his best to help him keep that streak alive. Christian Watson had a huge impact on one of our fantasy games, how the outcome was going to play. One of our teams was up by 12 points, I think it was, and that person that was behind was the only player left to go, and that only player left was Christian Watson, who was averaging a game. Well, if Christian Watson had turned around and caught that late game pass from Rodgers, who was trying to help Watson keep this streak alive, if he had caught that, that team would have won. But because it sailed past him, it cost that guy the win. So dramatic. All right. In the late games, I went 3-3, and Jeff went a perfect 6-0. I don't even know that I had a section when I went undefeated. I don't think anybody else, any of the other guests, have had a moment where they in the section. I'll have to go back and check, but that's impressive. I was 10-6 on the week, but man, Jeff was 13-3. So congrats to come on the podcast and beat me in the game picks. At the end of all, though, I'm not too sad about how my game picks went this season. I was 130 correct out of 92. According to some stats I saw on Google, I beat out a couple of the ESPN experts and some of the others with as many picks as I got right. Correct on 222 picks. So I thought that's pretty decent. It's just slightly above half, right? So I will continue to make game picks. I'll probably post them on the Go There on Fourth podcast page. But like I said, this is the last episode of season 1 of Go There on Fourth. I want to say thanks to you, my listeners, my fans. If you've been downloading the podcast on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Audible, wherever you're listening from, thank you so much for tuning into my wild obsession with football and mixing it with a little bit of Jesus. If you've been watching on YouTube or Facebook, again, thank you. I appreciate it. If you were a guest, I want to say thank you to Jeff. Thank you to Brandon. Thank you to Christian Bishop. Thank you to Andy Newman. You guys all came on as a guest and dialogue football with me. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this podcast, you want to check out some other stuff that I have, you can be sure to check out ravnaz.com. That's where I serve as the pastor. We have services every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. You're more than welcome to join us either in person or on our Facebook page. Or you can also catch my sermon on the Dirt Pass Sermon podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting apps. But hey, don't be too sad that this is the last race. There will be some bonus episodes. And the first bonus episode, or at least one of them, coming up will be a playoff special at the conclusion. That it'll probably be Tuesday or Wednesday after the conclusion of week 18. I'll make some playoff predictions, other things like that. I may even have a guest with me. Who knows? But there will be some other bonus episodes throughout the offseason. So don't unsubscribe to Go There on Fourth. Do me a favor. So hit that subscribe button right now. Share this podcast with somebody else. And even if you really want to help me out, go and leave a review. Close this final episode, this episode 30 of Go There on Fourth Season 1. I thought the only fitting way to close the season out is with the eulogy. I got to say goodbye to my fantasy team. Don't be a suck-up. I'm honored that you will join me for this eulogy. And just give me a second as I prepare for the ceremony here. So hum to yourself, whatever it takes. Give me just a second here. And I'm going to read this closing eulogy to you. Oh, it fell down. And see, there's my little logo for the Don't Be a Suck Up, right? You can see it. We are here to remember, don't be a suck up. My 2022 fantasy football team. You were drafted with so much hope and potential. Even though Russell Wilson was traded away for Keenan Allen, we rode like the Bronco Nation to a 1-6 start. Then somehow, this team came alive. came alive like they had finally transitioned from being a human to a zombie. They stumbled around based on the strength of a cheetah and a lion, somehow finding a way to claw into the playoffs, dragging a limp and lifeless limbs with them. They finished the season 6-8, and it was a miracle to be in the playoffs. Don't be a suck up. I'd say your run was ended much too soon. You can finally be at rest. So much time was spent in your care over these last 15 weeks. Each game I was filled with excitement because of you. Now that you're gone, LeBron doesn't just shave off the rest of the hairs on his head. And what is the difference between a Euro step and traveling? I will long for the NFL draft, and I pray that the Colts do not take Will Levis. For everything, there is a season. That includes football. And until that season comes again.